Good evening and welcome to Thorold City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And I'd like to adoption of the agendas moved by Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, second by Councillor Sharon, that the council adopt the agendas as published on September 27th, 2018, and any and all revisions published October 2nd, 2018 be supported.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. Are there any discussions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We'll go right into the mayor's report. It's quite brief. On behalf of Thorold City Council, I'd like to take a moment to wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving long weekend and remind everyone that the municipal offices will be closed on Monday, October 8th. Regular office hours will resume on Tuesday, October 9th. For those of you that follow council meetings, please note that next meeting of council will be held on Tuesday, November 6th, to accommodate for the upcoming election on Monday, October 22nd. And I'm going to call on Fire Chief Dixon to, he wants to talk to us about the Thorold Fire and Emergency Services Volunteer Firefighter Recruitment process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce that tomorrow is going to be the kickoff to the 2018 Thorold Fire Emergency Services Volunteer Recruitment Drive. If you're interested in being part of a proactive, dynamic group of individuals, the Thorold Fire and Emergency Services is looking forward to having you. If you check the City of Thorold's website, you'll get all the information on our upcoming sessions. There'll be information pamphlets and information sessions being held at numerous stations throughout the municipality. And the application deadline closes on November 9th. We're looking for you to join our team. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Dixon. Adoption of the minutes moved by Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sharon, that the council and general committee meetings of September 4th, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Discussion to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have two public meetings tonight, and I'll begin with the first one. This public meeting is being held pursuant to the provision of Section 34 and 51 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to add an automobile washing establishment as a complementary use on the subject property. The purpose and effect of the proposed vacant land condominium application would add lands to the current ownership of the applicant for parking, the automobile washing establishment, and a proposed propane filling station. The applicant seeks approval to amend the zoning bylaw Prestige Industrial PL-1 zone to add an automobile washing establishment as a permitted use. A sign-in sheet is located at the back if you wish to receive a copy of the forthcoming city staff recommendation report and a copy of the City Council decision. At the same table, copies of this evening's city technical report are available for review, which include all comments received to date. I will now call in Mr. Per Becaduramo, architect, agent for the applicant, to present the proposed application. Sorry, sir, if I destroyed your name.
Good evening, everyone. The purpose of the application to amend the zoning bylaw is to permit the additional use of an automobile washing establishment on the subject site. Now, the subject site is located at 3250 Schmon Parkway in Thorold, Ontario, and it is located on the southeast corner of Merrittville Highway and Schmon Parkway. It has a frontage on Schmon Parkway of 140 meters and a lot frontage on Merrittville Highway of approximately 74 meters. So the purpose of the application is to amend the zoning bylaw to allow for an automobile washing establishment. Currently, the zoning bylaw permits, there is an existing gas station on the subject site, and the proposed car wash would be a complementary use to the gas station. And the proposal is consistent with provincial planning policies. Provincial policy statement 2014, PPS 2014 was analyzed, and the development is consistent with PPS 2014 as it promotes economic development by providing employment and commercial development in the area. Now the plan, we also analyzed the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, which is also a provincial policy document. And the proposed car wash development is consistent with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and which encourages a mix of employment opportunities. The region of Niagara official plan was also analyzed, and the proposed development is consistent with the region's plan. The city of Thorold's official plan was also analyzed, and the policies in the official plan is consistent with that of the proposed development. And I'll just read a few sentences from this. The proposed development, according to the official plan, is designated, it's in the Brock Business Park area, and the BBP employment designation is intended to provide for standalone employment uses. The BBP, sorry, just one second, which are distinct from uses located in the BBP mixed use designation. The proposed automobile washing establishments is an employment use complementary to the existing automobile service station, and it conforms to the Thorold official plan. Now, the purpose for this application is to amend the zoning bylaw, like I said earlier. The zoning bylaw currently permits the gas service station, and the car wash is a complementary use. On the slides, I have snapshots of the site plan. As we can see, it's fronting Schmon Parkway and Merrittville Highway. We currently have a stacking lane that can accommodate 5 cars. According to the zoning bylaw, the requirement of the bylaw states that the required allowance for stacking by the bylaw is 4 cars in the stacking lane. We have provided 5. And I have the floor plans. I have renderings of how the proposed car wash would be integrated with the existing gas station. So we strongly believe that the proposed car wash is a complementary use, and it's going to provide the much needed car wash services to the area. And I am also aware that in 2021, there would be Canada Games in Thorold, Ontario, and having the gas station and the car wash would be a beneficial establishment, because people who have the need to wash their cars would easily just pull over and have that facility and have that service in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for our presenter? Seeing none, I'll move on. Thank you, sir. You can sit down.
Thank you.
I'll call on Eldon Darbison, our Manager of Planning, to highlight the technical report. Mr. Darbison.
Yeah, thank you. Planning staff will review the application compatibility and land use impacts. We'll review the scale of the development. We'll be looking at the same policies that the presenter has outlined, being provincial, regional, and local planning policies, and also the planning reports and supporting justification reports submitted with the application. We will be bringing a recommendation report forward at a future council meeting. That concludes.
Thank you, Mr. Darbyson. Are there any questions for Mr. Darbyson? Seeing none, thank you. I'll move into the public participation portion of this public meeting. If a person or a public body chooses to not provide oral comments at the public meeting or written comments before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of vacant land condominium are adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Now at this time, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, I'll move to the conclusion, to my closing remarks. This fulfills the requirement of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13. Pursuant to Section 34 and 51, the City's General Committee will consider staff's recommendation report, which will be subsequently considered by City Council at a future date. Anyone wishing to receive a copy of City Council's decision as a result of this application is asked to submit their request in writing to the City Clerk. As such, the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. And I'll move into our second public meeting. 1522 Beaver Dams Road and 181 Queen Street South to permit a 60-unit apartment building. This public meeting is being held pursuant to the provision of Section 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to amend the zoning bylaw from Prestige Industrial Holding PIH 7-7 zone and open space OSH-10 zone to a site-specific residential fourth density R4B zone to permit the construction of an apartment building. Related consent application B09-2017 was approved to facilitate the creation of the land subject of the zoning bylaw amendment. The sign-in sheet is located at the back if you wish to receive a copy of the forthcoming city staff recommendation report and a copy of the City Council decision. At the same table, copies of this evening's city's technical report are available for review, which include all comments received to date. I'm going to call on Mr. Stephen Bedford from Landex Developments, agent for the applicant, to present the proposed application. Welcome, Mr. Bedford.
Good evening. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's particularly important that I be here tonight because we're talking about a development that has been in the making for over 10 years with the City of Thorold. The proposal to build this nonprofit housing property is a nonprofit housing project. We anticipate the property to be sold to Thorold Nonprofit, and in the future they will be taking over this property. And you are all probably very aware of the lands that we're talking about. These are lands that have been under restoration for some 15 years, over $15 million have been spent on this whole property, redeveloping or cleaning up the property so that residential developments such as this can move forward. This is an aerial photograph of the site. To the left of the site is Phase 1 of Artisan Ridge. Phase 1, their services are being put in now, and construction of low-density residential will be happening this fall and over the winter and into next year. The property in question, you can see outlined in red, is the apartment site, and behind it, we will be initiating a Phase 2 residential subdivision to complement Phase 1. Lands to the west, as you're aware, still will have the Exelon factory on those lands, and lands to the east is the existing low-density residential neighborhood that you're all aware of. The building that we're proposing is a 5-story, 60-unit building, 75 parking spaces. It's a very efficient development with the appropriate location on Beaver Dams Road, a major road, and on the corner of Baker Street, which is a future road that will be constructed as part of the residential subdivisions to the north. The property in question is designated regeneration overlay. This is a designation that was created some time ago to, in fact, provide for redevelopment such as this on the lands that are being restored. So the proposal in front of you conforms with the regeneration overlay that has been in place for many years. We are applying for a zoning bylaw amendment. While the official plan was amended to provide for the regeneration overlay, the zoning was not amended. And so you have still in place prestige industrial zoning on this land. We need to zone the property appropriately so that the apartment development can go in. You have already dealt with, approved both a rezoning and a draft plan of subdivision on Phase 1, the lands immediately to the east of this property. The appropriate zoning for a building such as this is R4B, and it's site-specific, and it's site-specific for only one reason. This building meets all of the requirements of the zoning bylaw, except for the minimum lot area per dwelling unit provision. The existing bylaw requires 130 meters squared per dwelling, and we are requesting 92 meters squared per dwelling. That is the only difference between the standard R4B zoning that you would normally have here and the development that we're proposing. In order to propose this development, we've been working with staff. We've reviewed, as others have, the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the regional official plan, and of course we wouldn't be here if we didn't know that this building, this development, conforms to those documents. We're requesting council's approval of this small amendment to the zoning bylaw to provide for this excellent nonprofit housing development for seniors in the city of Thorold. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Are there any questions of our presenter? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Bedford.
Thank you.
And I'll call on our manager of planning, Eldon Darbison, to highlight the technical report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, planning staff will review the application in terms of its compatibility and land use impacts on the surrounding area. We'll be looking at the scale of the development proposed, any provincial, regional, and local planning policies that have an impact on this development, and all the reports that are submitted with the application, and any comments that we received this evening from the public meeting. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Darbison. Are there any questions for our planning manager? Seeing none, thank you. I'll move into the public input portion of this meeting. If a person or public body chooses to not provide oral comments at the public meeting or written comments before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Now at this time, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Please state your name.
Sign the sheet over there, just to let you know. What I did want to bring a comment forward here. First of all, I'd like to commend everyone working to get seniors affordable housing built in Thorold. I know the nonprofit's been working on this for a while. And I know it's located on the Queen City. The item I wanted to bring up is not specifically on the property, but I wanted to make sure, because I've talked to about 4 or 5 households that live on Queen Street South. It's the intersection of Beaver Dams and Queen Street South that the individuals are really concerned about. Since the bridge, Queen Street Bridge is closed, there's really only one way off Queen Street, and that is called the road. It is, if anyone's been there, anyone talked to the residents that are there and actually drove there, you would see that the intersection is a blind intersection, so you cannot see cars coming from the west. It is a rolling grade and it's bend at the same time, so it has 2 implications. Well, I'm not sure how to properly address this. I'm not an engineer, construction individual, but I just wanted to bring this forward. I know it's a regional road, but it has to start with the city comments here and work with the region to learn, because you're addressing a city intersection along the regional road. I think it's quite critical that looks at. Okay. You just don't want any car accidents there. You don't want any of the local neighborhood residents, because with the building, there'll be increased traffic. There's no doubt about that. That'll be one of the ways of going. If you're heading east, you're going to be going to the Highway 58 or down, or same if you're heading west or the Highway 58. A lot more traffic there, especially with the whole subdivision being built. Not opposed to that, just see if we can deal with safety concern of the system. That's very critical. And for those that have been involved in this in the past, quite a while ago, if you remember St. David's Road, we used to have rolling hills. The intersection of Tupper and St. David's was a blind intersection. It was a pretty horrific crash that occurred because you didn't see the vehicle that was in the hills, and then it appeared all of a sudden and someone came on the intersection. Something very similar in this location here, so I think it needs to be addressed. I'll leave it in the hands of the planners and forward to get technical people to.
Thank you. Again, I'll ask, now at this time, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Please come forward to the podium. I'll move on to my closing remarks. This fulfills the requirements of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 pursuant to Section 34. The City's General Committee will consider staff's recommendation report, which will be subsequently considered by City Council at a future date. Anyone wishing to receive a copy of City Council's decision as a result of this application is asked to submit their request in writing to the City Clerk. As such, this public meeting portion of this application is now closed.
Introductory to the
Oh, okay. Okay, we're into we're moving to civic recognition, and the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, JAAC, of Lincoln, West Lincoln, Pelham, Thorold, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and Grimsby is pleased to announce and recognize this year's winner of the We Are Accessible campaign. The campaign recognizes local organizations and businesses who have made efforts to provide accessibility for people with disabilities in their communities. So, what are we going through now? And I would ask Donna Harrington to come forward, and do you have the award?
Yeah, she has the awards.
She has it already? Oh, okay. Hi.
We Are Accessible campaign recognizes local organizations that have made efforts to provide accessibility. There are 4 recipients in this year. Thorold Seniors, Community Credit Union, First Ontario Credit Union, Dr. Schmon Parkway, and high levels of accessibility areas, and all provide excellent customer service. On behalf of those living with disabilities, as the representatives.
The award session.
Where is the,
She has them right there. Yeah.
For the Thorold Senior Citizen Association. Congratulations on being so successful. And the next one is for Thorold Community Credit Union. Oh, fantastic. There, in each package, there is a certificate of appreciation saying how accessible they are. And also, for their windows or doors, it is a We Are Accessible sticker. And you will notice there is a person in a wheelchair, and this one is for hearing impaired people, people with canes, seniors, and obviously people with dogs. And now it doesn't mean blind people anymore. This could be people who have seizures, people in wheelchairs, emotional support dogs, sugar dogs, all kinds of dogs that are being used nowadays. So now people look here, and that means that people in these businesses welcome anybody with any disability. Okay, now the First Ontario Credit Union. And if anybody from Dr. Armando's office here? All right, thank you very much.
Congratulations. Okay, we have. Yeah, okay. We have two presenters tonight. I would like to make them aware that you have 10 minutes to speak. So the first presenter is Sue Moran, and she is our city's tourism agent. Welcome, Sue.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Happy to be with you once again. I guess on our last meeting that I'll be presenting to this council, so congratulations, everyone survived. Just reporting a little bit of an update for 2018. Tourism Venture Niagara has the contract with the City of Thorold to provide tourism information services. So basically we manage the Lock 7 Information Center, and we also basically spend your tourism dollars, your marketing dollars as well. First of all, I want to say that we are probably the most beautiful information center, and in 2018 we got quite an upgrade, and I want to thank city staff for all the attention that they gave the information center. It's outstanding. You'll see by these pictures. And I know that every time I call Curtis, he sends somebody and things get done, and it's wonderful. So within 24 hours, we basically get a lot of attention. So we are open from May 1st to, we will be closing Monday on October 8th, Thanksgiving Monday. So we did an example of something that went very quickly is when Mr. MP Vance Badaway was coming to visit the center to celebrate the dollars that we did receive from Canada on behalf of the Summer Jobs Program. We realized that the Canada flag was ripped, and within, I'll say 20 minutes, somebody was there with a new flag and had it up before Vance Badaway walked in the door. So it was really nice. We have new signage just going down that little street about announcing the information center and the viewing complex, and also a new information sign in the parking lot. We continue with our partnership with the Thorold and Beaver Dams Historical Society. If you have not been in the museum, and I will not make you put your hand up, these are pictures from the museum, and you should go because it's absolutely beautiful. And the stories that we get from people who walk in, who have family who live here, and they really add to the ambiance in the center. So it's money well spent as far as I'm concerned. So we promote the Thorold and Beaver Dams Society and Museum exhibits. And even when we're giving information center, information directions or information on restaurants in Thorold, the staff have been very courteous and helpful, and generally the guest will say, do you have a donation box? And therefore a donation goes into the museum donation box with information provided by the information center. So that's a nice partnership. We had visits from some important people. This year, a colleague of mine, Jackie Phillips, she's the manager for Ontario Travel Information Centers, with her director, the VP of Visitor Engagement and Northern Marketing, and also Sue Harrison, Director of Ontario Travel Information Centers in the whole province, came to visit our information center to see how well it was working and one of the best practices of the province. So I was very proud to have them and some of their staff come and visit us. Also, one photo here, or two photos with Vance Badaway, who came in. He's our Member of Parliament. I'm sure everybody knows Vance. He does lots of nice trips to Thorold as well. I wanted to point out the numbers, the tracking results from 2017 to 2018. This was up to September 23rd, and basically the numbers were the same. However, at this point, I did ask my staff today, and the numbers were at 8,351 people and phone calls that we had received in the center this year. So this slide shows you 7,915. We had a lot of walk-ins. There's mostly walk-ins. They show up by car, mostly from Ontario, but I did a few stints there in the last week, and I've seen people from Kentucky and London, England, and all over. Most importantly, they do want to know more about Thorold. So I think that that partnership with the museum is really important. They really want to know more, and the history of the Welland Canal, and definitely the ships are very, very important. We've been extremely busy on social media. You'll see here by the numbers that we've had 51,273 page views and 41,000 unique visitors, which is quite important. We are pushing that website a lot through Facebook. You'll see that we have 751 organic followers on Twitter, 414 on Facebook, and so on. We started a new Instagram account this year. We have quite a few followers, and all these are organic, which means we're not paying for anyone to be friends with us. We don't have to pay anyone. They're actually naturally happy to be our friends. We've had some excitement with the videos, the Port Robinson video. We've had 1,100 Facebook views since April 2018, which is quite impressive. And also our views on the other video, the longer video on Thorold tourism. The Canal Bank Shuffle this year will be celebrating their in 2018 will be their 17th anniversary. If you have never been, it's lots of fun and you will really enjoy the shows. For $25, you get about 30 shows. And it's just lots of fun, brings lots of people in, and I know that the Inn at Lock 7 is booked a year ahead of time every year, and the other B&Bs as well. As far as the Port Robinson Ferry is concerned, now calling it the Love Boat. There was an engagement on the Port Robinson Ferry named Bridget, so a young man asked a lovely young lady to marry him. So now I guess we could call it the Love Boat Update. Things are going well. I have heard nothing but wonderful things about the Port Robinson Ferry. And again, to staff, and I don't want to name names because I'm not sure who did it, but this is the best thing Niagara has ever done. And it's certainly City of Thorold staff that have done it. They put barriers up at the end of Port Robinson Road West, or Bridge Road, I guess it's called on the east, but Port Robinson Road, stopping cars from turning around on the Greater Niagara Circle route. Very frightening when you're a cyclist and you come face to face with a car who's lost. They're not trying to go down the Greater Niagara Circle route necessarily. I'm sure some have gone a little further. But this has saved lives already. So I am so excited. Showed up one day and it was there. So some more activities in 2018 are photo shoots. We're starting to do more now, and with the help of city staff, we've decided to take pictures of the arena inside and out. We were there this weekend as well. And the Deku House and the First Nations Peace Monument. I know that you are redoing your website for the City of Thorold, so these photos will be taken so that you can use them as well. The Welland Mills Building, Lock 7 Information Center, inside and out, the library, so I'm glad Joanne's here. And of course, yeah, the Welland Mills Building. So those are the photos that we're taking this year. Some activities in 2018 included heritage tourism in partnership with Niagara College. Very important to mention that Craig Finlay, president of the Heritage Committee, and I have been working with the Niagara College program, tourism program, and with their students went to do presentations there, encouraging them in a program this year where they'll be working with the Thorold Tourism Advisory Committee, Heritage, and myself on a vision for heritage tourism for the City of Thorold. We also are working on heritage flags for French Street, celebrating the Prince of Wales Award. The Prince of Wales Award winner plaque has also been installed at Lock 7 Information Center. And new tourism update emails that we've been sending out, unfortunately, do not reach all of council because I think you have a very strict firewall at City Hall, so you've not been receiving my wonderful updates on tourism in the last 2 months. Some people have because I have some personal email addresses, but unfortunately, I don't know how to correct that, but if you can, that would be excellent. We had a new historical tour by Guillaume Donat, who owns Niagara Segways. Unfortunately, I don't think he had a lot of uptake there, but at least we have a tour operator ready when we're finished with the students at Niagara College and we have our vision already. We are waiting to cut down some trees, I believe, at Lock 7 Information Center so we can see the ships go by. The Lions Club bike repair stations, I believe, are going up, and I'm sure city staff know all that, and they'll be there soon. They'll be at Lock 7 Information Center, Port Robinson Ferry, and I believe a third location. I'm not quite sure what that is. Our contract expires December 31st, 2018, so we look forward to discussing any further services that we can provide with council. And in 2019 activities, we would like to see better overall signage for Thorold. And examples are signage for, from Lock 7 Information Center to the Greater Niagara Circle route. It's not a very big distance there, but it would be nice to have a little sign there when you get off one part of the Greater Niagara Circle route and onto the other. Better signage to Lock 7 Information Center from Highway 406 and Highway 58, and continue the Heritage Flag Program and develop that vision for heritage tourism for Thorold with LACAC and the Historical Society. That concludes my presentation, so I thank you very much for the time that we have spent together, and good luck on your elections or your retirement.
Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Sue. Perfect timing. Are there any questions for our presenter, Fred? Councilor Neal?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe a question to staff. When are you sitting down with our Niagara Venture to do the contract for the next couple of years?
Yeah, so like in the past, we will sit down with them and they propose a scope, and then we put it in our budget, and then when the council passes that budget, we engage their services for subsequent years.
So they're going to continue on till January, February, March, whenever our budget gets approved, or how's that going to work?
I guess in the past year as well, we have assumed that they will continue with us in the future, but certainly we get a sign out from council that we can't engage them, but they have continued for this year, despite the fact that the budget was passed in January. That's the understanding that we have with them. So it's not that, so I'll work with Frank and Sue.
Maybe we could do the contract to the 1st of April or something of that nature.
Certainly we can do that, yeah,
so
for sure.
Instead of doing it,
Yeah, that's good, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Ms. Moran.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay. We'll move into motions for support. No, I'm sorry, we have one more presenter, Joanne DeQuatros, Chief Librarian, and Tony Vandermast, Chair of the Thorold Public Library Board.
Good evening, Mayor Luciani, City Council, and City staff. Thank you for giving Mr. Vandermast and myself an opportunity to express our appreciation for Council's continuous support and to share the exciting things happening at the library. This month is Canadian Library Month, and Ontario Public Library Week is during the week of the 14th to the 20th, which recognizes the important contribution that public libraries make to education, literacy, lifelong learning, and the communities they serve. The library has an important role in our community. It is an age-friendly service that benefits everyone, regardless of their age, background, and abilities in 3 ways. First, the Thorold Public Library is an accessible gathering space where you can meet your friends to make a craft, learn basic wood carving techniques, and explore new cultures. Second, the library connects individuals with our community through programs. The library leads programming in the community. For example, we hosted a free skate with the city at the arena, and we had a booth at the Canada Day event with information about the library and activities like maple leaf painting. And this summer we provided pop-up libraries where children read books and created a craft in Port Robinson and Thorold South in an effort to reach children who do not have transportation to the library. Lastly, the library is dynamic. For instance, we have added a new collection of comic books and new makerspace programs. We also have a library news section on the Thorold News website and a vibrant social media presence describing our events, special project, and sometimes our staff conversations, all in an effort to reach and connect with members of the community. Statistics for Thorold Public Library show that last year patrons borrowed more than 77,000 items, so that's the equivalent of 4 items for every Thorold resident. Our collection is not the only thing that's attracting attention. In 2017, the library's website had over 52,000 hits. The library's internet computers and wireless is also well used. So 12,022 people spent 11,047 hours surfing the internet at the library. So that's an average of 231 people a week spending 216 hours a week using the library's internet and public access computers. Last year, 6,706 people participated in 502 programs. So just to put that in perspective, the number of participants in library programs can fill the Frank Doherty Arena, a sold-out game, almost 5 times. In total, our community received $3.1 million worth of services. For the city of Thorold, this is a return on investment of over $5 for every dollar of municipal funding. The library is truly the best deal in town. Your library, though, is much bigger than our books, DVDs, Blu-rays, and video games. We also provided 2 specialty programs for Thorold residents this year: the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, the Power Off and Play, and Makerspace programming. The first program is the Healthy Kids Community Challenge, themed Power Off and Play, where children under the age of 12 are encouraged to power off their devices and play. Once again, the library partnered with local community organizations and the city to implement initiatives like the Summer Reading Club, bike contests, and a comic book club. We expanded our pop-up library initiatives to Port Robinson Park and McAdam Park. The Healthy Kids Community Challenge continues into the fall with indoor gardening and healthy cooking classes that begin at the end of this month. The library's second initiative brings us from a healthy lifestyle to a healthy imagination. The second program is our Makerspace. The library purchased Makerspace equipment thanks to a grant from the Niagara Casinos Fund at the Niagara Community Foundation. The equipment includes a 3D printer, green screen, camera, photo and video editing software, a sewing machine, jewelry and beading kits, magnetic building blocks, and a droid robot. Some of this equipment was featured at a Business After 5 in April. The equipment has provided an opportunity for the library to fill a community need. We are able to enhance our partnership with the local schools by providing technology that is not always available for classroom use. This has resulted in school classes visiting the library and library staff also leading Makerspace programs in the schools. New programs have also been added, such as Maker Monday, where anyone can register to use the selected Makerspace equipment and complete their own project with the assistance of a library staff member. The library will be using the Makerspace items to complete a new project called A Day in the Life of Thorold. And this will happen in the new year, where residents can come together to share the story of our community through photos. And the photos will be shared through our website and social media. So that leads us to the library's upcoming events this month and during Ontario Public Library Week. Events are listed on the slide, and we're extending an invitation for everyone to come and join us. On Wednesday, October 17th, beginning at 1 o'clock, the library will be hosting a patron appreciation afternoon, so please drop in for cake and coffee and a tour of the library. So Tony and I just want to thank you for giving us an opportunity to express our gratitude for the support of City Council and City staff, and to highlight the role the library plays in our community, our exciting events, and how together we build a strong community. Thank you.
Are there any questions for our presenters? Councillor Sharon?
This is not really a question, but it's more of a comment. I have a granddaughter who goes to the library on a regular basis and volunteers to work with younger students. I think it's extremely important that there are two ways to this, where people come and learn from being there, and then people come and learn differently by helping out with other people. So keep up that kind of cooperation with the other people in the community who come to help those who are there using your facility. They gain a great deal from that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, folks. We now move into motions for support. Town of Fort Erie, moved by Councilor Pion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Longo, that the correspondence received from the Town of Fort Erie from its council meeting of August 27, 2018, calling on Premier Doug Ford to present and enact government legislation, the Right of Passage Act, which is to, 1, ensure that the public has the right to walk along all Great Lakes shoreline between the water's edge and the high water mark. 2, require removal by property owners of all fences running vertical to the shoreline, a distance of no less than 10 feet from the water's edge, and any other obstructions to the public's right to walk the shoreline. 3, permit public access to the Great Lakes shoreline only via public lands, such as parks, road allowances, and easements. 4, prohibit the public from any activity on privately owned waterfront other than a right to walk along the shoreline, that this be received and supported.
Thank you, Councilor Pion. Speakers to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we're into statements by councilors. Okay, I guess I'm up first. Councilor Whalen, will you take the chair, please, as I would like to, I'm up first.
Will do, Mr. Mayor. I'll take over the chair and we present your motion.
Thank you very much. Well, the motion that I want to present tonight, and it has to do with a lot of what's been in the news media over the last 4 or 5 days, and it hasn't been very good. And my, has to do with the Auditor General's report of the NPCA, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. And by the way, from your regional levy, each taxpayer in Thorold pays about $27 a year. Am I right, Maria? Ms. Morrow?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, the average home would pay $27 as part of their regional tax towards NPCA.
Okay, thank you very much. So anyways, you know, you have money going in there too, and somehow I'd like to know why, you know, other conservation authorities do their business in 5 meetings, and when you're getting paid $75 a meeting, we have someone who charged for 145 meetings. I'm having a lot of problems with that, and I know most of you have been reading about it. So my motion basically is very simple. It's simple. It's that the province appoint a supervisor to the MPCA, and it be supported.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have a seconder for the motion?
Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Wilson. Okay, we'll put the floor. Any discussion or comments? No. Oh, Councillor Pion.
Thank you. I just want to, so it'll be to appoint a supervisor for the MPCA. Is it for a particular length of time or towards a certain goal? A restructuring?
I would say you're appointing a supervisor basically to do a study of the entire organization. And that supervisor will eventually make decisions with regards to staffing, human resources decisions that have been made in the past, and how to correct all the problems that organization is having.
Okay. Yeah, I support your motion. The reason I just brought it up is because I would hope that after the province takes over, they would work towards the goal of ensuring that whoever is on that committee is science-based. Right now, the process by which the members are selected is not. It's first choice to the councillors, regional councillors, second choice to the municipal councillors, and only then do you get, as a third choice, someone that the city can appoint. I think the people on there, the questions that MPCA has to deal with and the things that they review are questions based on hydrology, ecology, things that should be fact-based. And
wetland science.
And right now we have a lot of people on there who simply don't have those backgrounds. So I would hope that the restructuring would lead to a board that had people with the expertise to actually answer the questions that MPCA is supposed to answer.
Yeah, definitely you hit on a very sore spot there with basically Thorold's the only one that has someone that isn't a politician. And I know that Councillor DeAngelo sitting over there, him and I have discussed this over and over. And I think we're both of the belief that no politicians should be on that board. And I think that's probably a key area that has to be looked at.
Mr. Mayor, can I get some clarification also with the motion? Are you addressing this to the province or to the region, or who do we?
To the province.
The province? And are we asking any other support, or their MPP or so on? Or
pardon me?
Are we asking for any support from the MPP or just on our own?
Yeah, you might want to make that as a friendly amendment?
That'd be great, please.
Yeah, our MPPs, local area MPPs, the local area MPs. We can add that. We could add anything to that you want.
Okay. Councillor Sharon.
Mr. I have just a question. You just mentioned the fact that there's so many dollars, $75 for each meeting. Is that the
yeah, that's
figure?
about the average. Is
approximately.
Approximately $70 for most conservation authorities across Ontario.
And is that common for other committees that within the region, that they actually are paid to go to a meeting?
No.
Other than their own pay?
No. No.
So basically, this is a very unique situation?
It's a very unique situation in terms of looking at the numbers. Like, I really can't answer that. So, can you give me that question again?
Well, my question is simply, do we have other committees in the region where people are paid, and therefore other committees where people are not paid to be there?
Well, I believe the police board is one that gets per diem, and the chairs of the standing committees get a per diem, and the vice chairs get a per diem. But those meetings it's a yearly per diem, I think, for all of those, and I don't know what the numbers are.
Do all members of this committee receive?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Longo, do you have a question also, comment?
Yes, I'm just wondering if we can add that this is sent out to other local municipalities also.
Yeah. Yeah.
You okay with
that?
that?
Written down. I didn't.
Thank you.
You can have our clerk redo the motion, let us know what it's all about now, but yeah, maybe this will clarify it, Fred.
So the motion on the floor is that the province appoint a supervisor to the MPCA be supported as outlined in the Auditor's General Report, and that this motion be forwarded to local area MPPs, MPs, and area municipalities for their support.
Thank you. Councillor Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I agree with the motion, by the way. What I'm wondering is, because I don't want the province to take it over and keep it, and I'm wondering whether we put it in the motion that there's a date, an ending date for them to reach at the conclusions that they want to reach, whether it's 2 years from now or a year from now, or that, because I think we don't want the province to take it over, supervise it, and all of a sudden it becomes a provincial nonprofit environmental corporation.
It's a good thought. I couldn't think of how long a supervisor. I believe the supervisor that came in and did the Niagara Health Systems took about 2 years.
Yeah.
Or more.
Maybe a 2-year time frame. Could we add that into the motion?
Yeah.
Okay with that,
I'll
Mr. Mayor?
accept that. Yeah, accept that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Being none, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor? Opposed? So passed.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Whalen. Okay, I have under statements by councilors, I have Councillor Hanley, and it's parking restrictions on Rose Avenue and fire services public forum meetings of December 7th, 2017.
The one I was going to bring up was about Ross Street in regards to parking restrictions, but talking with the clerk tonight and through Mr. Dunsmore, that there was a public meeting and this process is in place, and a report's going to come back to council at the next meeting in regards to it. So until I see the report and follow the due process, and then I'll make comments at that time whether or not I support or don't support the recommendations that come forward.
Okay.
So we're good on that one. The second one, I'm asking council to waive the fines associated with a property at 54 Front Street in regards to invoices for what's described as avoidable fire alarms. On December the 7th, 2017, myself, Councilor Ugolini, the mayor, Mr. Daivitis, the clerk, Joanne Goulet, and our fire chief met in regards to concerns that were raised by Mr. Daivitis and the amount of the invoices that he received. At that time, it was deemed that through a letter that he received from the fire prevention officer, it was deemed that upgrades needed to be made to the fire system. But what it is that it's invoices for avoidable fire alarms. And during these meetings, these were fire alarms from someone not pulling the alarm. These were fire alarms from someone cooking on a stove, and the fire alarm was activated. And the owner of the property was the one that was actually fined, not the actual occupant of the building. And in fact, when I look at bylaw number 07-2017, we actually don't have anything in the bylaw that actually clarifies or actually defines what an avoidable false alarm is. In fact, we don't have anything in our bylaw that who is responsible for a fire alarm and its associated costs, be it the tenant or the owner. And it also, there's nothing there that really states or specifies what deems a false alarm. Since that, though, Mr. Daivitis has invested $24,000 in this said property. He rewired the whole building and put in timers added to the electric work on the hood ranges that would start automatically when the appliances, and after a specific amount of time that they would be done. Also, on December 7th, I had asked, and which council did pass and support on February 15, 2018, that Fire Chief Dixon be requested to obtain information on false alarms for commercial businesses and charges in the last 12 months and to report to council on January 16, 2018. This has not been done. It's been a 9-year period, and we asked for that to see that if all are being treated in the same manner. And also, a concern that I had is that the chief has the discretion himself, and it's the only department, but it's not following what we pass as council, is a schedule of fees that were approved by this council. And seeing that, and that our concerns have not been addressed in regards to what had been requested at a December 7th meeting, I'm asking that all fees and fines associated with the false alarms or avoidable false alarms as stated, which I don't agree with, for 54 Front Street, be waived at this time. Our concerns have not been addressed. Mr. Daivitis, at a meeting that we've had recently, didn't do $30,000 of the upgrades to his new building. We as a city, in fact, passed the building, so it's not false alarm. Someone didn't pull the alarm, it's activated. And we're fining the owner of the building, not the actual occupant, and I don't feel that's right. If I'm the person that gets into an automobile accident, you don't charge the guy that's standing on the curb. You charge the person driving the car. Same to me. It's an easy way out. It's because they have no traceable way of possibly recouping the cost associated with it. That's what it basically is. Whereas the homeowner or the property owner, the easy way out is just put it on his tax bill, which to me is wrong. It's not right, and I'm asking that council waive the associated fines associated with 54 Front Street. For the fact of the matter is, who the fines are associated with wasn't even occupying the building at that time. He's just the owner. And I don't feel it's fair. And again, as I mentioned, my concerns and the questions that were posed to the chief at the December 7th meeting and was to become the council on January 16, 2018, has not happened to this day, which is approximately a 9 or 10th month period. So that's all I have to say at this time, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to put a motion. Seconder for the motion? Councillor Whalen? Seconds the motion that all fees associated or fines with 54 Front Street be nullified.
Speakers to the motion. Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question, I guess. Councillor Hanley did say quite a bit, but I'm wondering where the report is, if the fire chief can tell me if that was something that he remembers being directed to provide to us, and why we haven't been given it, if so.
I got the minutes right
here. Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was no report, although I did send an email around indicating that there was multiple properties in the same situation as 54 Front, and with the exception of 54 Front, all of them have paid their outstanding fines or service fees for the service costs. So the only one that's outstanding is 54 Front at this time.
Could I ask, Mr. Mayor, through you? I didn't receive any emails. Did you, Mr. Mayor, receive any emails in regards to that? And as to what was requested? And Councilor Ugolini?
That's last January we were talking about. I can't recall, Jim.
I can honestly state that I didn't receive any emails, and that's not the point, Mr. Mayor. We had asked for a report to be brought back to council, not for an email to be sent to councilors. As was passed by council on February the 15th, 2018, Fire Chief Dixon requests to obtain information on false alarms for commercial business and charges in the last 12 months and report to council on January 16, 2018. That did not happen, council. We passed it. We had requested for it. I don't take emails when I ask for a report. And fining somebody who actually wasn't the occupant of the building, I feel is totally wrong. And again, I'm going to be bringing a notice of motion forward in regards to it, because we, in our bylaw, which I have here, there's no definition as to what deems a false alarm and who is responsible for the costs associated with a false alarm, be it the owner or the occupant, and that needs to be redefined.
I have Councillor Longo, then Councillor Pio.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask that the chief does provide us with that report. I have a hard time arbitrarily waiving fines without knowing exactly what's going on. I don't have enough information here to make a decision. I don't know the total dollar amount. I don't want to set a precedent here, so although we probably should have had this report a long time ago, I would appreciate getting it soon, whether I'm part of this council or not, for a council to review and to make an informed decision.
Councillor Pion, then Councillor Whalen.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Longo. I think we need a more detailed report. Also, mainly one of the things I also want to hopefully discuss is I need to address two questions of concern. One is we heard that other people who have been fined, other owners who have been fined, have already paid, so do we now go back and return the fund? It seems unfair to not have one person pay, but the others have already paid. I'm wondering about that. But also, when Councillor Hanley was speaking, he said, you don't charge the occupant. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the Clean Yards bylaw, if the grass is tall, do we not hold the landlord responsible? And so this could set a bad precedent, that if we now have houses that have unkept yards and tall grass, tall grass, we traditionally fine the homeowner, not the tenant. And so if we waive this here, because the argument is we've charged the homeowner, then what about absentee landlords who get fined for tall grass? Are they going to come forward now and also ask for the same? I'm a little concerned that this might set a bad precedent with respect to all of our bylaws, not just this one.
I have Councillor Wayland, and I have Councillor Ugolini, then Councillor Hanley again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're going in the wrong direction here. I want to understand for these false alarms. Were they false alarms? When the fire department got here, there was smoke in the building, and so the occupant put out the fire. If they hadn't put up, it would have been quite dangerous. Who knows what would have happened from there? So a little bit different than a false alarm with no smoke in the building. So it's a little bit different conditions than getting there and find out nothing happened. So there was an actual fire on the site. The tenant put out the fire, and then there was smoke in the building, and then the call was made. So it's a little bit different. And then the landlord is going to the extreme with this fire system too. So it's not like he just put a $20 system in. So it was automatic to the fire department. So like I say, it's nice that the fire was out, and so be it. They came, and there was no fire, but there was smoke.
Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councillor Longo. We need a staff report. I think the staff report should also refer to what the other offenses were in comparison, because I do believe this is very unique in what Councillor Wayland said about firemen showing up and there is actual smoke in the building. So,
Councillor Hanley for the last time.
Okay. Well, to me, I don't agree. I don't even agree with the clean bylaws. It was like if I'm at my cottage up north and a fire happens in my rental unit and my tenant is the one that caused the fire for the smoke alarm or caused the false alarm, that's who should be responsible for it. I know what he's saying, but it's not comparing apples to apples. We're talking about a fire alarm that was activated because of smoke. The fire alarm wasn't activated because it was a false alarm. And what we don't have in our bylaws is a definition of what an actual false alarm is. So how can you charge somebody and give them a fine for a false alarm when we do not have a definition in our bylaws as to what is a false alarm? He shouldn't have been fined to begin with. For in our bylaws, there is no definition that defines or deems what is a false alarm. And in the City of Toronto's bylaws is the only one I could find up. An activation of a smoke detector because of smoke isn't deemed a false alarm. So what I don't think council's getting the point here. We've charged an individual who the city 16 months before that passed this building and deemed it to be occupied and that everything was in working order. And that's exactly what's been happening here. The smoke detectors, in fact, have been working. Students have been cooking on the stove. There's been a fire activated. It's triggered the alarm. The alarm's gone to the fire hall where we pay good money for our firemen to respond. Would we want something to happen to one of those residents? That's why we got the units in there. That's what the point is here. We charge someone and fine someone for false alarms, but yet there's no discretion as to what a false alarm is. The discretion is up to the chief as to what a false alarm is, and I don't feel that's fair. And I'd like my motion to go forward. I know the report, the chance for the report was there, but councillors, think about it. A false alarm is not when another alarm has been activated by smoke. It's done its job, and that's what a smoke detector is meant to do. So I got nothing else to say, so I'm asking that be done.
Councillor Keon for the last time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Then Councillor Sharon.
I agree with Councillor Ugolini. He put it very clearly what my concerns are. I'm not saying I'm not prepared to waive these fines. I'm just want to make it clear through a report as to if it is a false alarm, then sure, we should consider waiving the fine and comparing to the other people who also paid their fines as to the nature of those alarms. Just like Councillor Ugolini said, we should compare, and it should be in writing so it's clear so that we don't by accident set a bad precedent. I'm perfectly prepared to waive these if it warrants it. I just think we should have it in writing in a report so that we can review it and make it clear. That way there's no question as to why we're waiving these fines.
Councillor Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my mind, this has become a much bigger issue here. We're talking now not about one particular set of bylaws. We're talking about all our bylaws where we have people who own property for some, where we have penalties because they don't use something. They don't take care of the property properly, or they are not cleaning the way they should be, or there are a multitude of things that we, with our new rental agreement that we now have on the books that are necessary for people to follow. And it becomes a very large issue, and because we can't just deal with one individual, we have to deal with everybody the same way. It's only fair when everybody's treated the same way. So we need to look at all of these things, and I would say to the CAO, we need to look at a number of other bylaws and how we are dealing with those in comparison to this situation to make sure that we are consistent all the way across the board.
Okay. Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I believe that we need to look at all the other bylaws and reports that we need to look at. So I will defer, I would like to defer this specific issue so that we can look at all the reports and all of our bylaws to make sure that we are, they're all similar, they're all the same. And so I'm deferring a deferral motion.
It would be a very lengthy process for us to go through.
Yeah.
Defer this one matter till November 6th.
Okay, that's fine.
So it's a lengthy process to go through all of our bylaws. Let's defer your matter till November 6th and report back on that.
Yes,
Okay.
And this way he can provide his report and that might end it.
that's right, and you'll have, yeah, I think.
Okay. The motion on the floor is to defer. There's no debating a deferral motion, so I'll call the question on the deferral. All those in favor of the deferral? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's passed.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, this matter will be deferred till November 6th, to give the fire chief an opportunity to prepare a report on this specific matter. If we're to review all of our bylaws and all of our fees, that is a very lengthy process. Let's deal with this one. In the meantime, we can also get some advice from our solicitor if necessary, if one will impact the other. But for now, we'll just defer the fire chief report, and he can report back on November 6th.
Okay. We don't have to vote on that, do we? No. Okay. Moving on. I have Councillor Sharon, and he would like to talk about Terry Fox, which was very successful, and the heritage designation at 51 Welland Street South in Thorold, which was also very successful.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Terry Fox Run. Terry Fox Run was very successful. There was we had a large number of people come out, but more importantly, they came out for the right reason, to help other people. And I want to thank all those people who did come forward or support someone who was there. And we hope that we will either get right at the $400,000 mark or very close to it. You know, that will include all the people who brought money to the run, people who went online and donated money, and all the kids and the schools in our community, all of whom we count together and make it a donation from the city of Thorold. Whether you're in a school or whether you're at the run itself, you are part of the city of Thorold. So thank you very much for all who did show up. Thank you for all that supported us in some way. And includes the merchants, the full-time firefighters, and all those who made it all happen. Thorold Secondary School, I could go down the list, and I'm sure I'll get part of the way down. I miss about 6 people who should have been, I should have mentioned when I was talking about it. So that was number 1. Yesterday, the 51st, not yesterday, but Sunday, the 51st designation took place in the city of Thorold at 51 Welland Street South. just happens to be my son's home. And we were very pleased to be there, as many of you were, in order to celebrate this special situation where, we take a home and we recognize the fact that it's part of the heritage. Sue was here and talked about heritage and about tourism in our community. There are 3 areas of tourism in Thorold. One of them is heritage. And now 51 Welland Street South is part of that heritage. I know the people who were there had a great time. I know that the owners of the house were ecstatic about the whole process and how it happened. And as the father-in-law and father of the people who own the house, I had a wonderful time myself.
So did I. Okay, I have Fred Neal on the marijuana legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of course, January 22nd is a very important date, and that date is whether we want to opt out of the cannabis retail section of the provincial act. There's a lot of things going on right now. April 1st is another deadline, and that's the opening of licensed stores in our community. So City Council has not dealt with this yet. And I think we have to have at least a discussion by January 22nd, 2019 in order to figure out how we're going to handle our retail sales in Thorold, our smoking in Thorold, whether we're going to have the same restrictions on our city property as we have for non-smoking. So there's a number of things we have to deal with. So I have a motion that I'd like to put forward, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ugolini, that staff prepare a report on the cannabis issue to be brought back to council before January 22nd, 2019. Options on what we can do to restrict, regulate, or opt out of where retailers can sell marijuana products. Also, where we can restrict smoking on city properties. The decision should be put in policy and bylaw form. So that's the motion I would like to put forward.
Okay, any other speakers to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And finally, Deputy Mayor Tim Whalen, amendment to residential licensing bylaw, section 12, 1, 4, and recap of the Toronto Marlies game.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I came with the intent tonight to put forward the amendment to our licensing bylaw to put forth the motion that not to be having to put the license and your escape route at your front door posted on your wall. It's not fair to tenants to have this. You think they're living in a motel as opposed to their home residence. But in talking with our CBO, Jason apparently is in the process of revamping that bylaw anyway. So I'd just like to get assurance that these people will not have any repercussions if they don't post in the interim. As long as they have it available and accessible in case something happened, that's all we're asking for the time being. So if we get that from staff to assurance, then we'll just put this off till we get the new bylaw in place.
You're putting that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I don't think I need a formal motion, Mr. Mayor, just assurance from staff that say there's no repercussions if they're not posted in the interim.
Mr. Simpson, can you
Through you,
comment,
Mr.
please?
Mayor, yeah, the bylaw and procedures, inspection procedures, and enforcement procedures are currently under review. It is a requirement of the current bylaw that the fire safety plan and the license be posted within 1 meter of the entrance of the building. The the license and the fire safety plan do not need to be posted at the time of inspection. They need to be posted. It is just a requirement of the bylaw that it be posted once they receive that following inspection. So at this time, it's hard for me to say that there's no repercussions when you violate a bylaw. All I can really say at this time is it's currently under review, and we would deal with it on a case-by-case basis.
That being the case, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put the motion forward that we change that to have it accessible in case need be and not have it posted on somebody's front door. I know myself, I wouldn't want it posted in my living room or at the front door at my house, or I don't live in a motel, I live in a home, a residence. The crazy thing about this, the lady that questioned this passed the licensing with flying colors. So they're on the good side, and then she's being penalized for having to post this propaganda at the front door. Maybe not propaganda, but a posting that interferes with their living conditions. So I'd like to put the motion forward that we have it accessible as to being posted. So readily accessible, like the escape plan as well as the license, if need be. I mean, we know the fact that it is licensed, has passed, so we know it's a good deal. So I'd like to put that motion on the floor then, please.
You a seconder?
Councilor
Ugolini. Speakers to the motion. Councilor Ugolini.
I agree with Councillor Whalen. When we put this bylaw into place, and that's why I'm happy with what Jason's doing, we put it in place, but we were open-minded and said, look, we're open to simplify things, and we're going to work towards simplifying things. And that was our intent. Our intent wasn't to make things difficult, and we found that some of these things are difficult, so we'll work to change them. And I know you're working hard on doing that, so that's why I support this, so that we don't handcuff you in the interim.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Sharon, then Councillor Longo.
Yeah, I have just a very simple statement here that I think there are different situations in this particular case that I know you're going to look at very seriously. And it's one thing when you have a rooming house and there are 10, 12 or more people living in that particular space. It's another thing when it's somebody's home, and a rooming house really is not a home. Somehow we have to be able to look at that a little differently. We've looked at other things in a different way. I talked about them extensively this evening. This is sort of one of them that falls into the same category.
Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree completely with the resident who has an issue with it, and I believe it's a weak point in the bylaw. But again, I don't know if we're going about this the right way, and I don't know if picking off little pieces of each bylaw one by one is the right way to go. We passed a bylaw, and I'm not quite sure now what we're doing. Are we reconsidering an entire bylaw? Are we doing a reconsideration of a bylaw we just passed? But it is a reconsideration of the bylaw we passed. Well, I guess I'll wait for the clerk to give her professional opinion.
You do an amendment to section 12.1.4 of the bylaw.
But that is not a reconsideration of our bylaw?
Fine, it's only one it's only
Okay,
one small section.
I just wanted to clarify that to make sure we're doing it the right way.
It doesn't change the intent of the bylaw at all. It's just one, a housekeeping matter is what I would call this as.
Okay. So if there are other issues related to this bylaw, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I've had numerous calls, and I'm glad we're doing a review because I have numerous issues with this bylaw and the way it's being applied. Should we be dealing with those all on a one-off basis like this? Or should we be waiting for it to be reviewed and brought back to council so we can deal with it as a whole? That's my question. And that's the way I feel about it. Again, I feel for the person who has the complaint. I really don't think it's necessary, but are we setting a precedent here by allowing one thing because 9 councillors got an email? I have a page full of complaints and none have been addressed. I've emailed staff continually and nobody's addressed my questions. I haven't even had a response to emails. And yet, one person emails 9 councillors and we're going to jump? I don't think it's the right way to do it.
Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our clerk hit it right on the head. This is a housekeeping procedure until the new bylaw process can get back to council. So it just alleviates the problem we have at the initial. There's one spot, and then we'll get hopefully a revamped bylaw in the near future.
Go ahead, Councilor Longo.
I've got a housekeeping issue on my street, a property that hasn't been licensed. Nobody's gone out to look at it. The homeowner hasn't even applied. Is that a housekeeping issue? Or is that just something we're going to deal with one-off later on? These are big issues. This is a big item we passed, and I don't believe we should be picking it off piece by piece. We need to do it properly as a council.
Councilor Payon.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question through you to staff. From the conversation we've had so far, I gather that there's a review of various parts of the bylaw. Is there an estimate of when we're going to have a report to see what things we might or might not want to change?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are just beginning the review. It is, I want to make sure it's done properly, so I don't want to rush it. But my intentions is to have it completed by the end of this year.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up. Like Councilor Longo, I've also had people contact me making suggestions about how this could be improved. Do I email those suggestions to you and you might consider them for the review? Because I also have a lot of issues with certain aspects of how the bylaw is being applied right now. And I think things should be changed to make it more streamlined and less onerous on the owner. So do I send those suggestions to you?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm prepared to support the motion as long as we don't continue to do a one-off thing. I mean, on this one time only, because I think it is silly to have to post it like that. As long as you can present it, you know, you don't put your driver's license on your windshield. As long as you can give it to the police officer. So I'm prepared to go ahead and do that, knowing now that there is a process in place where we are going to be able to address many other issues as well.
Ms. Delvecchio may have a solution to this. I'll allow her to speak.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Whalen, would you consider amending your motion to direct staff when they do their review to review this particular item and that it be included?
Mayor, I would have been happy with that. I just don't want the ramifications to come back at this person in the interim. So that's the only reason I put the motion on the floor. I was happy to start this off the way it were, but then we got pushed back that they didn't want to interfere with the bylaw. So, no, I'd leave the motion on the floor because I hate to have something happen to this person.
Okay. Any other speakers to the motion? I'll call a question. All those before I call a question, can you read the motion again for me, please? I want everybody to be clear on what we're voting on.
That section 12.4.1 of the residential licensing bylaw be amended that a residential license and fire safety plan be readily accessible and not be required to be posted at a front door of a residence.
That's Councilor Whalen, is that?
Can I just get clarification on that again, please, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead. Can you read it again?
That section 12.4.1 of the residential licensing bylaw be amended that the residential license and fire safety plan be readily accessible and not be required to be posted at the front of a residence.
That's fine.
Chief Dixon would like to say something before we vote on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sympathize with Councilor Whalen's homeowner's concern, and I think first and foremost that all the inspectors doing the job have their own discretion to handle things. But as Councilor Sharon dictated, not everyone can be in the same residential little cookie cutter case. We followed the Ontario Fire Safety, the Ontario Fire Code, which requires it to be at the front door in a prominent spot. But more importantly, it's for those places that this incorporates an Airbnb, room and boarding lodging. Very similar to a hotel where it's on the back of the door. It's mandatory there for their safety. So I'm not opposed to definitely working with staff to re-look at this issue. And I would say in your case of that individual that the inspector definitely has his own discretion to deal with the matter. And I know they've dealt with other ones dealing with that in a single family home where there's, it's a family that's rented it for years. Whereas it's a room and boarding lodging, they want to treat it different, and same with Airbnb, where maybe the traveling public renting these, we need to be cautious, and that's my only concern that I want to express to you. And we followed the Ontario Fire Code where it's posted in a prominent location and very similar to the, also on the back of a door in a hotel room.
Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Before we vote.
So hopefully this will just pacify things till the time being, and then we can elaborate a little bit further. Like Councillor Longo has some concerns, definitely. And then Councillor Shaver made a point about a rooming house. It's a lot different than a single residential home, which is the equation here. So rather than reinvent this whole bylaw, just puts a Band-Aid on it for the time being until our CBO comes back with a formal update it down the road a bit.
Okay, I'm going to call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay, Councillor Whalen, you want to talk about a recap of the Toronto Marlies game?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to get a staff report to come back with our Toronto Marlies update, just how things went last week, the good, bad, and the ugly, costing and so on, just so we get something in place down the road if we want to do it again. And I say if we need it revamped or just what, just give us, we probably won't have it back at this council, but the next council can have a footprint of just what to look for going down the road.
Okay, you got a seconder?
Just a staff report, I wouldn't mind, not a bylaw, Mr. Mayor.
Still need a seconder.
Okay.
Councillor Longo.
Councillor Longo?
Speakers to the motion. No speakers, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Can I add one more thing, Mr. Mayor, on a different subject?
I don't know if it's allowed.
Council will then permit it. Will council permit him to introduce?
It'll be up to council.
It's just an update on the dog walk that their parade is coming in 3 weeks, so it's just a public announcement.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I've got two things I need to ask for. First off, is that the second annual Canine Costume and Puppy Parade sponsored by BIA takes place on the 27th of October from 10:30 in the morning till noon. And last year we waived the condition of it not being a city function, so we wouldn't have insurance being it's on the sidewalk. So the BIA is asking for that again this year. So I guess I would.
It's not a city function.
Well, last year we classified it as a city function, so they wouldn't have the insurance. So we've always set precedents last year for the walk. So whether, say, I'd like to ask for it again, but it's up to this council. I say it's on the sidewalk, it's just a liability with people walking in costumes, the same as Halloween on the sidewalk.
I'm going to ask staff to jump in here and help me out, because I'm trying to think of why we would make it a city function so that you can waive, so that the insurance is waived.
Like I said, it was done last year, so I'm bringing forward the request again this year.
Can I get some help from staff?
Through Mr. Mayor, I really think we need to speak with our insurer before we just arbitrarily say, yes, it's okay to do so.
Okay, so we get a report, well, we won't have another council meeting prior to that, so we get a yes, no, if we can, even that if the BIA, I'm sure, could buy the insurance through the insurer for this type of event, we can work with that also. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay, 5-minute break, please. Okay, I'm just going to do notice of motion, then before we go into general committee, we'll take a 5-minute break. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none? Councillor Hanley.
Just one. I have a notice of motion I'm going to bring forward in regards to amending bylaw number 07-2017, section 11, in regards to recovery of costs and additional expenses. Being that there be no discretion from staff, it's the only department in that stuff that actually it's at the discretion of the fire chief, and I want to amend the bylaw, so that's removed. And also I'm going to ask, I know that we've talked about it earlier, that it be redefined in the bylaw that already is, bylaw number 07-2017, that is whom responsible for a false alarm and its recovery costs, and what deems a false alarm. That's not part of this bylaw, and it needs to be, as what I had mentioned earlier. so that there's clarity. And that's what we don't have, is clarity, is who's responsible for it. So I'm going to be bringing a motion forward to amend bylaw that I had mentioned here in regards to the fire services, number 07-2017, section 11.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other notices of motions? Seeing none? Yep. Yep. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll resolve into general committee. I'd like to call this general committee meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Any conflicts of interest? Seeing none? We have no delegations. I'll call for reports to be brought forward from consent. Can I get a mover for the consent items? Councilor Ugolini. Are there any items that councilors would like pulled to discuss? Any of the reports for discussions? Consent reports? No. Okay. Okay, I'll call a question on a consent report. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we'll move into discussion reports. PWCS 2018-52, RFP Award Consulting Services for Municipal Class Environmental Assessment for Reconstruction of St. David's Road, contract number 2018-110. Mr. Dunsmore.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's recommended that council approve the award of the contract for the environmental assessment for the reconstruction of St. David's Road, contract 2018-110, in the amount of $181,582.98 for the city portion to RV Anderson, and that the mayor and clerk be directed to execute the necessary agreement. So concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Dunsmore. Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Pion.
So moved.
Speakers to the report. Councilor Neal.
Yeah, he just said 181, I believe it's 81.
I apologize, you're correct. 81. I got excited.
I know you want extra 100 grand, but
contingency.
Any other speakers to the report? I just want to comment and thank staff for getting this report out at the last minute. This will connect Brock University to Front Street and Thorold and Merritt Street and St. Catharines. So I'm very thankful that that's been brought forward. Okay, and that's my own. And I'll call a question.
So just a comment on it. So 81,000 is our share, and we are co-sharing with St. Catharines. The total cost of the project will be 163,165.95 cents. So 50% of that is our share. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. PDS 2018-29, Municipal Law Enforcement Officer, PPE. Who's speaking to that?
So, Mr. Mayor, it's requested that council approve the purchase of an armor carrier vest funded from a general budget overrun of $1,138.33.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a mover for the report? Councilor Ugolini. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CC 2018-43, Council Committees and Boards Review. Ms. Del Vecchio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are several recommendations that make up this report. Do you want me to read every single one, or is council comfortable? Do they have any questions with the recommendations?
Do you want them read off? There's quite a few. So, thanks, Fred. Okay, I'll call a question. Or I need a mover. Councilor Longo.
So move the report.
Thank you. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. FES 2018-13, Request for Proposal Award 2018 3/4 ton pickup truck. Mr. Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Dixon.
The recommendation is that council approve the award of the purchase of a 2018 3/4 ton pickup truck at a cost of $30,000 $600 plus tax to Brock Ford. Thorold City Council approved the purchase in the capital budget of $30,000, and I'm asking that the overrun be funded from a reallocation from the office renovation fund at Station 1.
Thank you, Chief. Can I move it for the recommendation? Councillor Neal.
So moved.
Speakers to the report. Seeing none, Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We usually get, was there only one tender replied on it? Because we don't have our list of.
Yeah, that's correct. There was only one tender.
It's hard to believe these people don't want work. Thank you.
Councillor Hanley.
I agree with Councillor. I know I won't get into debate, but all the other pickup trucks that we purchased in 2018, I went through all the tenders the last time. There was more than one company that bid on them. I can never understand that every time that we get any coming from this department, that we only get one tender. It amazes me, and it's always from the same individual company. That's what gets me.
I'd like to correct the councillor.
Well,
this is from
Ed Learn Ford and Brock, Ford dealers, sorry.
Go ahead, Chief Dixon.
I follow all the procedures. I put it out, post it, it's in the papers. I can't control that.
Thanks, Chief. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. FES 2018-14, write-off St. Lawrence Seaway invoice for confined space rescue. Chief?
I'd just like to read the second part of the first of that one that just passed. It's a two-parter.
You want to go back to the last report?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Sorry about that. There was a second part, is that the staff recommend that the additional cost to equip the truck with a plow, cap, and emergency lighting be funded through the reallocation of a capital budget account from the Station 1. The total amount requested from the budgeted $20,000 is $18,473.50.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, just a question on the second report, if I could, Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
Since you put it in two parts. Do we not have snow plowing equipment in the city of Thorold? Why do we need to equip to do Station 1, or is it going to be doing all the fire halls, or what did we do in the past for snow removal in regards to fire stations? Why do we need to have a plow on it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to answer the question, at this time it's a mixed bag, and we're trying to improve our service. Currently it's a mix of private contracting for some stations, municipal for others. We're trying to speedline that, and that staff will be doing the plowing and eliminate some of the costs that we're currently facing, as well as there's been numerous delays, and we've had complaints from a tenant of ours within Station 2, which is the Niagara EMS, as well as one workplace injury as a result of slipping in the parking lot. So we're trying to get on top of this ourselves and be proactive.
One other question, I could just.
Go ahead.
Do we recoup any costs from EMS for providing snow removal for them? Seeing it's our own station, it shouldn't be an issue and that stuff, so.
Well, they're a tenant and they pay rent, so they don't pay snow removal, but they pay rent, which is all incorporated and such.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. FES 2018-16, Old Aerial Number 1 be removed to reserve status. Chief.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's recommended that council approve the current Aerial 1 be kept and placed into reserve status once the new aerial arrives. When it becomes too costly to maintain or is replaced with another truck, it will be disposed of, and a subsequent report will be brought to council.
Thanks, Chief. Can I get a mover for the report? Councillor no? Mover for the report. Councillor Whalen. Speakers to the report.
Mr. Mayor, at a previous council meeting, we had asked and council had approved. I had put a motion forward. I clarified with the clerk today that a report be returned to council, that a more thorough report from what had been previously, and he was to present to us the pros and cons of keeping it, and also what the salvaging value may be of said vehicle. That hasn't been done, and I requested that. I put a motion forward that council supported at the last meeting. So to me, the report is not what was asked for in regards to this apparatus. And I'll state again, it's more or less at the time was deemed unsuitable for the city's needs. It had lived out its lifespan. Actually, I had mentioned a lot of questions. I went through the meeting. I even went down about how about if we were in down Eller Road or whatever and that stuff. And it was brought up that it could be safety issues in regards to that aerial too. And now we're going to take the ladder off of it, but the rest of the vehicle's okay. Then why didn't we just purchase a new ladder for it? My concern is when we first had this discussion, I asked thorough questions. It was deemed that this truck had lived out its lifespan and was not suitable for the needs of the city, and now it is. But not only that, I did not get the report back as requested, and I did clarify that with the clerk this evening that we asked for a more thorough report in regards to pros and cons associated with keeping this apparatus and what the salvaging value may be. Because of that, I want to go back to the motion that I had put forward to council at the time, that this truck be put out of service and salvaged or auctioned off. I did not spend $1.3 million on a new aerial to keep an antiquated piece of equipment that's 25 years old to be used now for training purposes. When I've just bought a $1.3 million aerial, I would think it would be more suitable for training on an apparatus that is brand new and not 25 years old. It's more or less just an override of the last report. They use it as a taxi service to get firemen around, and there are costs associated with insurance. And I don't believe we should keep them. We've never kept a piece of equipment in the past. When we've purchased new pumpers, we've got rid of the old equipment. We actually had a purchasing agreement before where we would give it away, basically to needs, communities' needs, if so could be addressed. I'm not in the business of spending $1.3 million and then getting into the antique fire truck business and starting to store equipment. What do we do when we get a pumper out? Again, the report that I asked for and the motion by council was supported has not come forward. It's basically a report as the same as was last time. It's not what council had asked for. So how could we be bringing it? I still haven't got my report, just like the previous report I had brought up. I asked for a report. Why is it when I ask for a report from this department, I do not get it? That's another question. We can go back and go through the minutes, but it was reported and asked for a more thorough report and the pros and cons. It hasn't been addressed, my initial request.
Can I get someone to put a motion forward to defer this report till before someone? Anybody willing to defer the report, this report right now? You've spoken, Councillor Hanley, you can't. Councillor Payon.
I did have questions, so yeah, I'll defer.
Okay, motions to defer is non-debatable. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Deferring? That's carried. Okay. Okay, I guess we didn't, FES 2018-14, we didn't vote on the write-off of the St. Lawrence Seaway invoice for confined space rescue. So I'll call a question in on that one. All those in favor?
Can we discuss that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm asking if I can ask what it says, due to legal ramification. What's the legal ramification? We just had a discussion about waiving fees in regards to the fire service and it was denied. So now I know this is 2015. What is the legal ramification? And why are we asking to waive this? On March 1st, 2015, Thorold Fire Emergency Service invoice St. Lawrence Seaway for confined space rescue. Subsequently, due to legal ramification, the St. Lawrence Seaway should not have been invoiced originally. What's the legal ramification?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's very little, this is well before my time, so I'm just trying to clean up some housekeeping things. There's some legal correspondence between the St. Lawrence Seaway saying how they pay for the service and this was all a part of it. And there's also the fact that it's long after I've come along that the statute of limitations to have any recourse to go after taxes or anything has expired as well. So I'm literally just doing a housekeeping thing that I just caught recently. when we're looking at outstanding invoices. This is literally from 2.5 years before I started here.
My question in that regards to the statute of limitations, again, I would have liked to seen the legal report in front of me. I'm making a decision here to waive $9,497.66, which council just denied another one. Now it's due to a legal ramification. I don't know, I can't speak on it no more in regards to it, but maybe we should do what we just done in the previous one. We need a report. Where's the documentation? Even though it may be before his time? And where does it state that it's past the statute of limitations? I'd never heard of statute of limitations for invoices, myself, personally.
I have Councillor Pio and then Councillor Longo.
I'm fine for now. Thank you.
Councillor Longo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor Hanley on this. I believe we need to understand why we're waiving $9,500. And I'd like to see the legal report and recommendation from legal on why we're doing this.
Okay. You putting that in the form of a motion?
Unless somebody wants to defer it.
Okay, I've got Councillor Pio and then Councillor Ugolini on the same subject.
Councillor Hanley makes a good point. I'll say the same thing now I said when we were discussing the issue that he brought forward. Just to make sure we're not setting some sort of a precedent, I need more details on exactly why. Just as before we needed to know whether or not it was a false alarm or not a false alarm, I need to know more details about exactly why we're waiving these fees. Otherwise, I can't vote for it. Just as I said before, I'm trying to be consistent. I said no when Councillor Hanley brought that forward, and he's right. We have to have more information for this one as well.
Councillor Ugolini. Thank you, Councillor. No debating deferral motion. I'll call a question. All those in favor of deferral? It's deferred. Thank you. Carried.
Can we go to 16 and on, and then we'll go in camera?
Okay.
So start at 16 and go.
Okay. Motion to ratify recommendations from General Committee, moved by Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Hanley that Council adopt those items approved by the General Committee on October 2nd, 2018.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moved by, final reading of the bylaws, moved by Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved myself, second by Councillor Wilson, that the lead be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 104-2018, being a bylaw to exempt a certain block of Plan 59M-439 from Part Lot Control Block 37, 10, 12, 14, and 16 Harmony Way, Rolling Meadow Subdivision, and Bylaw 105-2018, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings from the Council of the Corporation of the City of Thorold as regular council meeting and general committee meetings on October the 2nd, 2018, and not this we said the first time.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Sharon, that the bylaws just read a first time be read a second and third time and do pass, that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule to the council to the contrary notwithstanding.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Adjournment, moved by Councillor. No, I'm sorry. I missed one, eh? No, this will. Did one. Yeah.
What's the motion? To council receive and file the minutes, committees of council. By Councillor Hanley.
Okay. Committee board minutes meeting. Councillor Hanley.
Seconded by Councillor Longo, that council receive and file the minutes of the committees of council local boards as presented.
All those in favor? Not here. Opposed? Adjournment, Before I adjourn, let's get a motion to go into camera. I need a motion to go in camera. Councilor Ugolini. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So this meeting's adjourned afterwards. Adjourn after in camera? Okay.
He must go outside.
Jump. No, that's just for the environmental assessment. But that's the start of that project. Then it goes to engineering, then it goes to the